सुबह
गुड इवनिंग।
गुड इवनिंग। कैसा है मेरा? तो मैं ठीक करके आता हूँ।
यार ये ठीक नहीं आ रही है पिक्चर।
So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Happy Bringling. We are here again on Facebook Live with our next topic of Making the Virtual World Alive series on COVID vaccination challenges with respect to availability, distribution, and training to health workers. My name is Anshav Jain. I'm founder of Bringle Blended Meetups and Blended Learning Platform, which has got an organic reach in 141 plus countries. With this, I would like to talk about, or in fact, today, all our speakers, Dr. Savita, Dr. Sabeen, Dr. Hari Krishna, and our valuable chief guest, Dr. Balakrishna Shetty. They're going to speak about the challenges, when the vaccination will come. It's actually it has already come in. What kind of challenges we are going to face with respect to distribution and the training to the health workers and the doctors. And with this, I would like to request Sargam to kind of introduce the speakers of today. And Sargam, do mention something about yourself as well.
Thank you so much, Anshav. It's a pleasure being on this platform and happy bringing to all of you. So my name is Sargam Mishra. I'm an energy coach. I help create successful business using consciousness and also help entrepreneurs become more conscious by using energy principles. And I believe that our outer world is a reflection of our inner world. And that is the whole idea behind the offering and services that I create in this area. People also call me the energy guru, and currently I'm working on several aspects of business, especially with respect to energy. So that's about me. Thank you, Ansha. Thank you, Dr. Hari, for giving me this opportunity. And I would like to welcome our chief guest for this session, Dr. Balakrishna Shetty. He is the Vice Chancellor of Sri Siddharth Academy of Higher Education, an eminent personality. He is known in the international arena for developing the MRPET technology for early detection and staging of cancer without radiation. He has many scientific publications to his credit, and he's very well known for his guest lectures, not only in India, but also in the USA, Malaysia, and Middle East. Dr. Shetty, thank you for coming on board, and I would like you to say a few words for this session as we open up. We'll have to Dr. Shetty, I'll unmute you. Yeah.
Thank you, Sargam. I think I'm audible now. Yes, thank you for that introduction. And I welcome everybody for this most challenging webinar or meeting on COVID vaccine. Okay. I would like to say the most important question today, not only in India, all over the globe, across the world, there is only one question. When will you get the vaccine for COVID infection? You know, that is a one multi-million question which is there in everybody's mind, which everybody is asking. I would like to say, with my vast experience as a doctor, as a medical doctor, as well also my vast experience in Harvard and Stanford as a radiologist, I have not seen a single disease which is so complicated as the coronavirus infection. Okay, now, starting from the beginning of the disease, the pathology of the disease, the pathogenesis of the disease, initially we thought it is just a respiratory tract infection, and we thought it collapses the lung first, and after that, because of less oxygen, all the other organs will fail in the human body. And that was taken away by another discussion telling that coronavirus causes thrombosis of the blood vessels, and they said it is a disseminated intravascular coagulation which causes a death. So we do not know whether it is a deprival of oxygen which causes a death, or whether it is a thrombosis of the multiple blood vessels which causes a death, or both of these must be functioning in coincidence to kill the organism. As far as the viral infections are considered, we all feel it is something like a flu, which will come and go. Most of us will not be worried about the viral, the flu-like infection or influenza-like infection. But the mortality, the way the coronavirus is spreading across the globe, and the mortality rates, we are all worried about this particular disease. And in the meantime, the pathophysiology of the virus is so confusing, and at the same time, the treatment pattern is also very much confusing. And of course, there are so many antiviral drugs which are available, and we feel none of them are so effective for the infection. And we also talked about hydroxychloroquine. Now the latest drug we are talking about is the steroids, dexamethasone. So we are all confused about the pathogenesis. We are also confused about the treatment for the disease. When I was a medical student, I read about this virus, which is called the coronavirus or the rotavirus, which are used to cause a simple diarrhea, but never cause so much of terrible disease. So with these all confusions, we talked about plasma therapy. Okay, that is also, I feel it is not very effective, whatever it is. And the confusion is so much. I would like to say one of the prime ministers of the well-known developed countries, he said, let people die and develop a herd immunity. That was a statement given by one of the prime ministers of a great country across the globe. So we went to that extent. So the question today, will we get an vaccine? Will be there an vaccine in the short time? Okay, of course, I hear about a lot of companies, the Zydus, the Pfizer company, the Zydus company, then the AstraZeneca company. Almost so many companies are talking about vaccines, but still it is not into active use. And also last week, our own ICMR, Indian Council for Medical Research, said they will be bringing out the vaccine by August 15th. Okay, but whether it is really practical, I really don't know, because there are preclinical studies, there are phase 1 studies, phase 2 studies, and phase 3 studies. With this brief introduction, I would like to introduce my panelists today, who are all eminent physicians. There is Dr. Sabita and Dr. Sabine and Hari Krishna Maram, all there in the team today. I think they are much more experienced than me, and I would like them to take over and talk about this vaccine today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I would like to introduce each of our panelists that are guests that are here, because they have this amazing background to discuss on this topic. So I start with Dr. Sabine. So thank you, Dr. Sabine, for being there. Dr. Sabine is a gynecologist and a health policy and governance strategy lead. She has worked with several healthcare businesses and projects in public and private sector industries. She is also a strategy lead and a supply chain procurement head at MSF UN, having worked in 27 countries and taught at HKS, NUS, and INSEAD. So she is an eminent guest on this panel, and I welcome her with a lot of love and respect.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sabine. We also have Dr. Savita, and welcome Dr. Savita to this speaking session. Dr. Savita is a clinical microbiologist by profession, and currently she's associated as the head of quality at RL Jalappa Hospital and Research Center, Kolar, Karnataka. She is an impaneled NQS, NABH, Green Healthcare QAI assessor and a resource person at NHSRC. She is trained at Singapore for advanced tracers in auditing for JCI. She has 21 years of experience in patient and care safety, with special emphasis on hospital, infection control, and disaster management in healthcare. So welcome, Dr. Savita. And last but not the least, Dr. Hari Krishna Maram, who is the Digital Brand Ambassador and Vice Chancellor of the Vision Digital India. So Dr. Hari, welcome, and thank you for gracing this webinar. Thank you so much for being here. So yeah, I open the forum for all three of you to discuss and add value to it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sargam, for the very good introduction. And I just want to request Dr. Sabine to talk about. I mean, this question is open to all three of the guests, of the speakers today. And I think the question is that what vaccine is probably about to come, or in few cases we have already seen it has already got some Indian government approval from some of the companies. And what do you think, Dr. Sabeen, that the challenges are going to come once the vaccine is out? So while we'll discuss more in detail once we go offline, and we will talk, we'll brainstorm a little bit more about the session. But what do you think are the major challenges which everybody should know out in the live session today?
I think the major challenge that we are going to face, even after, so first of all, we don't have a vaccine yet. We have vaccines which are in trial. So basically, we have, as Dr. Shetty quite eloquently put, we have a couple of vaccine ideas that were initially developed for SARS-CoV-1, or the ideas that were actually quite in fact quite prevalent in the scientific community since 1997, and they finally have come to the forefront, are in practice, and now in human trials. So be it the Oxford vaccination, which is already ongoing trials in both UK and Africa, or the Moderna vaccination in trial in Seattle, or the Indian vaccination, or several others that are several, almost 300 more vaccine trials ongoing across the globe. The biggest problem that we still would face, even when we have a successful answer to these problems, is going to be supply chain. In several cases of vaccination, for example, in case of polio in India, after we had manufacturing of polio vaccine at scale, it took us 10 years for the vaccination to reach every district in the country, let alone the rest of the time to actually look at compliance. So that brings me to the second problem, which is going to be compliance. So we are going to deal with a lot of endemic population which do not have great vaccine compliance, which is not only India, which has other countries in the mix like China, which has historically had bad vaccine compliance rates, which has been a couple of South African countries which already have bad compliance rates in terms of vaccines. So compliance is going to be the second biggest problem that we are going to face, I believe. And I think third is going to be capacitation in terms of manpower. We already do not want people exposed to this vaccination. When we are going to mobilize huge number of people to actually go to these pockets of areas to implement these vaccinations, then that would be one of the humongous um, trial that one of the humongous projects that we have to undertake, which will take its toll on both the supply chain and the management of every government system. So I think these are a couple of major concerns that we'll have to deal with, let alone the scientific concerns behind the actual vaccine. I think Dr. Savita will be really will be a better person to speak about that in that manner.
Sure. I think thanks, Dr. Sabeen. Dr. Savita, what is that you have to talk about the challenges? And I think Dr. Sabeen has already indicated that you probably have more insights on what you are doing. And so could you enlighten us on that same?
Yes, Anshav. Probably the challenges are we have many companies, about more than 100 companies coming out with different types of vaccines. Some of them working on the RNA part, some of them working on the DNA part, some of them working on the inactivated virus part. So the challenge is all of these vaccines have to go through all these phases, the preclinical, the clinical phase, and all the phases, and they'll have to come out successful. So that is more important for us. Of course, we have some in the pipeline. So I will be discussing about all these vaccines and the companies which are working towards it. Definitely, it's a big challenge because the virus itself is very unique and very different. Of course, I'll also be talking about the mutation part and how we are going to deal with it. So the challenges are there, but then we are all ready for it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Savita. Yes, we are all trying to be ready. In fact, the entire world is trying to solve this crisis. I see a lot of the Bombay, Maharashtra has actually extended the lockdown now. It's getting really worsened out here. And in fact, this time it is much more than what we used to have it in the last 3 months. So it's like, it's actually total lockdown this time. So even basic necessities are available only till early in the morning, like 8 o'clock or till 8 or 9 o'clock. And so it's going to be challenging, and I think we need to be protected. And as Dr. Shetty mentioned, that we are still unclear about what is this all about, how it is actually creating the life, threatening situations, and which is more difficult for the doctors all across the world. And if we are able to find certain things which can at least protect us from there, at least gives doctors some time to treat the patient, because many of the cases we have realized that you have got detected today and in another 2-3 days time, you have found that person no more, and it's a very threatening situation. So I think, yes, let's look at we are looking for a positive from a positive mindset, and hope that we'll get a vaccination soon. uh, with that, Dr. Hari, I think you have been into the medical world for a very, very long time. You have been, supporting that industry. So what is that you have to say with respect to the challenges and the vaccination which is going to come, and what should we take care of that?
Thank you, Anshul, and thanks to our esteemed chief guest and uh, co-panelist. As they rightly told today, I think 7.6 billion people across the world this movement of the vaccine. Because globally, 80% of companies are got affected with COVID-19 virus, and as today we just crossed, I think, 11 million cases across the world, and the situation is very critical everywhere. Even I'm sitting in a town called Bangalore here. The lockdown again. There is a news that they may start again lockdown, and here also the cases are increasing. So this is a kind of a situation. I think there is a great news for every one across the world, and it is definitely a fantastic news to each Indian. Because the Indian vaccine, which got approval from ICMR and DCGI, the Drug Controller General of India, the Bharat Biotech, which is supported by Dr. Ella Krishna, and the Cadila Jaidas, which is again the Ahmedabad-based company, they both got approvals. And since I worked in a company called Novartis, which is again the fourth largest pharma company in the world. We also market vaccines. We also used to promote some of the specialized products across 200 countries in the world. So the challenge is what right now is definitely, I think, August 15th, the Indian vaccine will market. Already are started, and the government is completely supporting, unlike earlier cases, normally the vaccine, to get a vaccine or get a new product, as rightly told by my other speakers, it takes a normal process at least 5 to 6 years. But here in this case, as a crisis situation, we are bringing this product in a very short span of time, and everybody got their own doubts about efficacy and side effects. In fact, I had one or two webinars morning also. A lot of people were asking about whether it is safe to take vaccine and all. So still we are at to wait, and we are going to get definitely the vaccine, and we have to see. But definitely, if it is entered in the phase 3, means it's already completed all other the animal test and preclinical studies successfully. That's why we entered. And globally, there are 100 players. They are working on this, because definitely we require that many numbers to get the vaccine to meet the challenges of 7.5 billion people across the world. And now the present challenge is, I think there are couple of questions are coming from today morning, whether we have to give 2 doses as a booster dose, to start with 1 dose, and giving a gap of 15 or 30 days, 1 more dose. So if that is the case, again, we require almost 15 billion doses. So where is the vial itself to manufacture? It takes large time. So these are the challenges. I think definitely things are moving. I think first time all the organizations together, they join together and working as a co-creation. Unlike earlier, all the companies used to fight between one player to other player to make a profits. But here now at this situation, all the governments are joined together, including the WHO, including the UN, including FDA. They want to see that everyone gets this vaccine and everyone get protected. Thereby, the economy will again come back to the normal. So that is my views at the initial stage.
Uh, Thank you, Dr. Hari. I think doctors and I would say uh, the experts out there are definitely working very hard in terms of bringing the vaccine. And what do you think the the other challenges with respect to the distribution? How is that we can handle that in this tough time, and especially to taking it to the far remote areas, even rural and tribal areas? How do you think that problem is that a big problem right now?
Yes, reaching large enough is definitely difficult. One is we have to see the cost, whether government is going to give subsidy or the government is going to give at a free of cost, or company is going to charge nominal money, or the vaccine is affordable. These are the few questions we have to get a clarity to come to the distribution. Definitely, I think if this clarity comes, then distribution will not be a problem, because since this product is required by everyone, then I think once the production is available, they will be doing in multiple manufacturing facilities. The production will be joining hands with other companies also to manufacture. So thereby, I think if once we get enough stock, I think there are a huge number of the pharmacy network, the wholesale dealers, the retailer network in India. We are one of the largest the pharmacy retail network in the country, and luckily, we have the e-pharmacies are closely around 250, which are registered by the DCGI. So I think with these online presence as well as a physical presence and the government supplies and government push, I think we will get vaccine to all the places. But initially, maybe they start in towns, then the phase 2 will be the areas where the COVID is not affected so much. So maybe they may go like how they are doing the red zone. So if that can meet up, then definitely I think if the distribution channel becomes more easier if we get a clarity on the product specifications.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Hari, and all the speakers and our chief guest. I would want everybody to kind of go on to on Bringel's site and basically sign up on bringelacademy.com/workshop/148. We'll be going offline now and we'll be discussing more about this topic. And I would request all of you to come and sign up over there and interact with our eminent speakers and panelists. If you still miss out this session, you can definitely join our community, bringelacademy.com/course/virtual reality, and you'll be able to go through this entire session into your course section as well. So with this, I would like to thank Sargam for helping us to coordinate this session and moderating this session. Dr. Savita, Dr. Sabeen, Dr. Hari, we will be definitely looking forward to hear more about the vaccination and how we can ensure the COVID vaccination reaches out to the masses. Dr. Shetty, thanks for your time, and we'll definitely come back. We'll definitely interact more in our offline session. With this, I would say we'll come back again next week with our new topic, and till then, keep bringing, keep growing, and we'll soon see you all in the offline session.
Thank you, Anshul.
So we can start with Dr. Savita.
Okay. So can I start?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So I thought I would just introduce this coronavirus to all of you. This coronaviruses we've been seeing from more than 20 years is the fact. They are all enveloped RNA viruses and they are about 4 types. Coronaviruses are alpha, beta, gamma, and delta. And this COVID-19, which we are talking about, belongs to the beta coronavirus groups, which is actually a zoonotic virus. That is, the virus basically is with the animals like bats and rodents, but it has jumped onto the humans in 2019. It's called corona because of its spikes, which I will show you some pictures. It has some spikes on its body, looks like a crown, and that's why these coronaviruses are called so. And as I told you, they are zoonotic viruses, and whenever these zoonotic viruses, whichever of them, they jump to humans, they become more virulent. And in the past, also, we've had 2 coronavirus outbreaks, to remind all of you. One was in 2002, and that was called severe acute respiratory syndrome virus. And we have the MERS, MERS, the Middle East respiratory syndrome virus, which was reported in 2012. So, but somehow, we escaped these 2 viruses as a pandemic. Now we are seeing this as a pandemic. We saw in Wuhan in China, and we kind of don't have an immune system to this virus, and it spreads very easily. Like what you have seen, the respiratory mode is the mode of transmission is through respiratory tract. So people exhale, and if we are around, people cough, people sneeze, even people talk loudly. If we are around, the respiratory droplets just get, if we get exposed to these droplets, we get infected. So basically, it is so easy that this virus gets transmitted from one person to other person, and the initial infection is an upper respiratory tract infection. So generally, you have a cold and a small sore throat and all that. So that begins with an upper respiratory tract infection. We all must know this. These coronaviruses, they hold on to the cells of human cells onto one receptor. This receptor is called ACE2 receptor. I'll talk more about this when I talk about the vaccine. And it enters very quickly. The difference between COVID-19 and the other coronaviruses is this COVID-19, once it enters the respiratory cells, it holds on firmly, so very firmly, and it also spreads very quickly when you compare to SARS or MERS. So this is the unique nature of this virus. And even if a person talks loudly, the saliva or the secretions that comes out of his body can carry these droplets and transmit the virus. Another major challenge with this virus is some of them, they say about 80% of the patients are asymptomatic, where the patient themselves don't know that they are transmitting the infection. So this is another big challenge. And this virus, as it spreads, it goes into the lower respiratory tract and it infects the lungs as such, the base of the lungs, and may cause pneumonia. So main serious effect or the severity is seen as the patients developing pneumonia and dying. So this was one thing, like Dr. Shetty was saying, we initially thought it was only pneumonia and people were dying because of low oxygen or, this problem, this pathology. But then later we found out that this another concept called cytokine storm in people. That is, generally whenever we have an infection to a bacteria or a virus, what happens? It comes and it gets into our defense cells. They are called the antigen presenting cells, which are present all over the skin and in the blood and everywhere. So these, our defense cells catches hold of these viruses or bacteria, and then it presents to the antigen presenting cells, and they release certain cytokines, which, they help in the defense mechanism, and they again wane off. But in COVID-19 infection, what's happening is there is a storm of cytokines. There is an exorbitant overreaction of these cytokines, and this is leading to a coagulopathy or clot formations, which is mainly affecting the kidneys and the heart. So the people are not only they're dying of pneumonia, but they're also dying of damage to kidneys and damage to heart. So this are slowly we are identifying many unique features of these viruses. So when we look at the structure of the virus to make a vaccine, now to make a vaccine, we need to understand completely the virus. So when we look at the virus structure, we understand that there are several different types of proteins present on this virus. So the spikes which are present on the top of the virus are called the S protein, the spike protein. Then there are several different kinds of proteins on the membrane called M protein, and this is also has an envelope. Always remember, enveloped viruses are very, sensitive, very fragile viruses. So as other enveloped viruses, this COVID-19 also is an enveloped virus, has an E protein, and there are several proteins inside the virus, inside the genome, the RNA, called the N protein. So when we have to make a vaccine, we will have to take care of these proteins, because these are the antigens which go and project inside the a human body, and they cause invasion and they cause the disease. Now, looking at this structure, we will have to see what the challenges are with COVID vaccine. Now, we have made many vaccines for many viruses previously. Now, we've made virus vaccines for mumps, rubella, we've made for measles, we've made for, smallpox, we've made vaccines for different viruses. But for COVID-19, you've all seen this picture where we had Jennifer Haller from Seattle, who volunteered for this company called Moderna, which was making this, which is still, trying to make a vaccine on RNA. And we also have another company called CanSino Biologicals in China, which is also trying to make a vaccine. So we have different companies coming forward to make vaccines, and we are all looking forward to them. But what is most challenging here is we are all in a hurry to get a vaccine. Now, when we look at the traditional style of the vaccines which came to us, sometimes it took 20 years, sometimes it took 10 years for a vaccine to be made, because they would all go through a certain protocol. They would go through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. The first trial would be in animals, and then once you come to humans, then you see the safety part first. Then after it goes to phase 2, you would look at the efficacy part. When it goes to phase 3, you would look at the evaluation part, and then you get the approval from the authorities, and then you manufacture, then you do the quality control. Now, what is happening with the COVID-19 is we will have to jump certain phases. So when the normal stages, when you see, it's the exploratory stage, preclinical stage, clinical stage, regulatory review and approval, manufacture, and then quality control. But when it comes to COVID, we are actually jumping phases. So basically, we are looking at vaccines which are made out of RNA and DNA, because the speed, we have the advantage of speeding up when it comes to RNA and DNA, because we can make a bulk of vaccines very easily. So we're looking at these companies which are making vaccines through mRNA or DNA. And also vaccine development steps, we are trying to parallelize with animals and humans. First you finish animals, you go to humans. But now we are trying to parallelly look at animals and humans. And we are also rapidly looking at the efficacy trial. The phase 2 trials are, we are cutting it short, making it small, and also looking at the large scale manufacturing of vaccines, which Dr. Sabeen will discuss. We have this foundation called Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovation. So all of us must know about this foundation, CEPI. This foundation will invite funds from all over the world, and they will try to donate it to the companies which are trying to work on vaccines. So it is Austria. Recently, this is the news on 2nd July we got. Austria donated 2 million euros to CEPI to support COVID-19 vaccination programs. So certain foundations are coming forward with, the funds and support to the organizations which are working for the vaccination. So the mission of this CEPI is to accelerate and develop these vaccines as soon as possible, and also to create a global network to ensure equitable vaccine distribution. It should not be that India makes a vaccine. It shouldn't be that only India is going to, vaccinate with people, or America is going to make vaccine. It shouldn't think that first Americans and then the others. No, it's not like that. The whole world will be, taken as a global network, and it has to be distributed equally to everybody. So CEPI has recently issued a call for funding, and they have asked for speed, manufacture, and deployment at scale and global access of the vaccine. So how many types of vaccines may be possible with COVID-19? So when you look at different ways in which, a vaccine can be manufactured, it can be two types. One is the gene-based vaccine, where you take a live vaccine, a live virus, you inactivate it completely. You see to it that it cannot replicate, and then make a vaccine out of that. Or you use a recombinant vaccine vectors. There are many vectors like other viruses. You can use an adenovirus, which is very, not as virulent as the other viruses. Use an adenovirus vector or other vectors and combine it with, a part of a virus and then make a vaccine. Or you have nucleic acid vaccines, which you take the COVID vaccine genome and you try to make a vaccine. Another type is the protein-based vaccine. So you have a whole inactivated virus, or you have viral proteins, or you have viral proteins assembled as particles. So you have various types of vaccines coming into the market. Always remember, the vaccines which mainly concentrate on the nucleic acids like RNA or DNA are the vaccines which can be manufactured on a large scale on a very speedy basis. So there's one article which I was looking at, developing a vaccine for COVID-19. So if you all look at this article, you'll come to know how different types of vaccines are coming into the market. I mean, they are being, studied. They are on different phases in the study now. The first is the inactivated whole virus vaccine. So live vaccine as such, we are not looking at in COVID-19 because of safety issues. We are looking at an inactivated virus and making that as a vaccine. So they have tested this on a preclinical trials on primates, especially the macaques, and they have vaccinated macaques, and they've looked at the macaques have thrown away the virus after it has been protected with vaccine. So this is a very good initiative, and we're looking forward, especially a trial in China is already at phase 1 to phase 2 level. Human trial of this inactivated vaccine is now underway in China. We have the spike protein. So you know that this spike protein of the virus is the one which comes and attaches to the human cells. So this spike protein has to be concentrated on. If you make a barrier between the spike protein and the human cells, so that vaccine would be more effective by not allowing the virus to hold on to the human cell. So this spike protein, which is the outer layer of the virus, becomes a critical point for us to make a vaccine. So we can make, a vaccine which will usually be called as a neutralizing antibody, which will go and block the pathway between the virus and the human cell. So this again is, they're working on it. On 10th January 2020, they had announced this, and the work is going on. Adenovirus vector. So this adenovirus can be attached to certain part of the spike protein and can be injected into a person. And this adenovirus will go and show this, project this spike protein, and it will teach the human cells to produce antibodies to the spike protein. And even before we get a COVID attack, we have antibodies to the spike protein. So this is the idea behind making this vaccine. So this started in 23rd April, and it is planning to recruit over 1,000 volunteers. There's another company working on mRNA as a vaccine. So they inject mRNA coding for the spike protein and let the host make the protein. So they'll use this mRNA and teach the host to make proteins which will work against the COVID virus. And there are certain vaccines which are trying to make some recombinant proteins. That is, they'll make use of certain DNA which will code this spike protein. It will imitate the spike protein. So when you inject this into people, this will produce antibodies against something similar to spike protein, and the patient is vaccinated to COVID. Other than these viruses, you also have non-coronavirus pathogens. For example, you all heard of the BCG vaccine these days. BCG vaccine also can stimulate plenty of immunity, innate immunity in the body. They've seen that people who have been vaccinated with BCG vaccine have a lot of immunity to influenza, or it can even up to bladder cancer. People have a lot of immunity. So they are also working on the BCG vaccine and looking at the other viral vaccine. They are looking at the oral polio vaccine. They are also looking at the MMR vaccine, how it could be used against COVID-19. So when there are an array of vaccines, there are about 20 to 25 companies which are working on protein-based vaccines. About 15 companies are working on nucleic acid-based vaccines. About about 12 to 13 companies are working on viral vectors, and about 5 companies are working on the real viruses, inactivating the viruses. So we have a plenty of companies working on various aspects of the virus to make a vaccine. So there are plenty of companies. So when you look at this graph, you have about 2 companies working on the live attenuated virus, about 5 companies working on the inactivated virus. So we have plenty of companies working on different parts of the virus and trying to bring out a effective vaccine. When you look at different countries, mainly North America is very promising. They have about 28 projects which are working on or confirmed projects working on COVID vaccine. And second is China, which has about 9 projects. Europe, you have 9, and Asia and Australia, you have about 10 projects working on vaccination. But what is more, required for us is the countries like Africa and Latin America to get into the vaccine business, because they have the potential to make large quantities of vaccine. So which they have done it in the past, but somehow we do not have much information about what Africa or Latin America is doing about vaccination. So when it comes to individual companies, we know that Moderna is the company which is working on RNA vaccine. So they're mainly using this mRNA, messenger RNA molecules, which will guide the production of proteins and production of antibodies in the body. And we have Pfizer company, which in collaboration with Germany's BioNTech is again working on certain RNA vaccine at low and mid-level doses. This is already in phase 2B to phase 2 study. DNA vaccines, we have certain companies like Inovio Pharmaceuticals working on, using a recombinant DNA into the, the virus molecule and injecting it. So on DNA, we also have this Zydus Cadila, which recently, also has, been accepted to do human trials. And there is other companies like AstraZeneca and CanSino Biological also working towards certain vector attached vaccines. So when you look at table, there are plenty of these companies which are at different phases. Some of them at phase 1, some of them at preclinical levels, which are doing their level best to bring out the best vaccine to the world. Now the hot topic is Covaxin. So as we all heard, Bharat Biotech together with Indian Council of Medical Research and National Institute of Virology, Pune. So NIV actually isolated the strain, and the ICMR transferred the strain to Bharat Biotech, and they have kind of inactivated the virus. So only we have the information is they have inactivated the virus, and they are coming out with a efficient vaccine. So they have tried their preclinical studies on animals. Now they have got the permission for human trials. So they are coming out with a vaccine which is going to create antibodies against the dead virus. And it is expected that by 15th August 2020, we would have, our country launching the vaccine. Now there are talks about mutation. Now, of course, yes, there was a study where they have identified D614G mutation in the spike protein of the virus. The surface protein of the virus has mutated already, and it has mutated so well that now the firmness of attaching to human cells is even more stronger. Now, we should all remember that all viruses mutate, especially RNA viruses mutate faster. And in COVID-19, the chances of the mutation is going to be more, because compared to DNA viruses, RNA viruses mutate more faster and more effectively. Now, there's no big surprise in for us knowing that the COVID virus has mutated and it's become stronger. But then when we looked at the vaccine response and the mutation, we are happy that the vaccines are actually effective on the mutated strains as well. So let's see how this is going to go and how we are going to make an effective vaccine. Definitely, we need a strong international coordination and cooperation between vaccine developers, regulators, policy makers, funders, public health bodies, and governments. And only a collaborative effect of all of them can we make a very successful manufacturing of these vaccines and also supplying and distribution of this vaccine, which Dr. Sabine is going to discuss. And thank you very much for your patient hearing.
Thank you so much, Dr. Savita. It was really valuable information. And I think the one point which I got to know specifically is that whatever we are understanding right now is the vaccine is actually still not the vaccine. It's mostly prevention of or stoppage of that spread of that virus at this point in time.
Yes.
Right. So I think we'll take more questions at the end once everybody is done. But Sargam, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Savita. It was really enriching.
Thanks,
And
Sargam.
I would request Dr. Sabine to share her presentation and enlighten us with more information on COVID.
So, Sargam, I'm really sorry I don't have a complete presentation in place, but taking off from where Dr. Savita left, let me try and articulate a couple of things that I know about supply chain. So first, a little bit about me. I have been working for the last 5 months in around 7 demographies. Been working in Tehran, in Barcelona, in Paris, in London, in Washington, in Lima, where I am right now, and briefly I was working in Delhi. So working with the government of India in Delhi. So what I feel, so there are a couple of insights that I have, which I want to share. One, that as Dr. Savita quite effectively mentioned, we have the virus, which is a rapid mutating virus, right? It's an RNA virus that we know of. Now, this virus has two things. One is a phenotype and one is a genotype. The phenotype is basically the way the virus presents itself, and the genotype is what its RNA structure actually looks like, right? So the RNA structure can change without changing what the virus does to the human body, right? But in Tehran, we have had a lot of cases where GI presentation was a primary presentation for a lot of patients, which then actually went into other presentations like the respiratory presentation, which is a general idea of what COVID looks like, right? But this has largely been seen only in the Tehran and the Iran area, not in other areas along with. Second thing that we have to look at when it comes to the viruses, there has to be endemic mutations in a virus. So because as the virus basically spreads in a population, of course it mutates as it grows from a single entity to multiple copies of the self. When that happens in a closed population, the virus mutation happens in a single direction. When it happens in different closed populations, which is basically us in a lockdown, then the direction of the virus is different in different principalities, right? So there is something, so we have an anticipation that when you open a closed population, then you start to see the intermingling of different phases of that, different types of mutations that have occurred in the virus, which actually ends up in being a repeat infection in some cases, or rather a more stronger infection in a lot of cases, right? That is one thing that we also should mention quite effectively. Third, now let's look at the vaccine that we have. A lot of companies which had already developed a couple of vaccines when SARS was actually becoming a larger problem in the world. Those vaccinations now are becoming a forefront of the beginning of the research for the upcoming SARS-CoV-2 vaccine, because the structure of the virus is similar and it's in the same family of the virus as it was in SARS-CoV-1. Now, that is a very, very good news for us. But uh, these vaccines, one thing that we have to be really concerned about is the lifespan of the IgM. Even after, what happens when I administer a virus to you is a virus develops a couple of antibodies in the body, right? These antibodies basically store the image of the virus in them, in their structure. And when a similar virus, or the same virus rather, affects again, then it basically ramps up all the support and goes at full force with attacking that virus so that it doesn't spread in the body. But what happens is these cells which store the image of the virus in them, they have a certain lifespan. So that is the cells which is rather the globulins that we are talking about, the molecules that we are talking about are IgMs, right? These IgMs have a lifespan in case of coronaviruses, the family of coronaviruses of around 2 to 3 years, right? So that has been historically seen in other phases of coronavirus. H1N1 was also a form of coronavirus, and we have seen around 6 other coronaviruses which have affected the human population already. Right? These vaccinations have IgM, which has a lifespan of between 2 to 3 years in most cases. Now, we don't know what is the lifespan of an IgM in COVID-19 because we haven't spent that much time with the virus. But if it's anything like it was in other coronaviruses, then we are going to look at these vaccinations to be effective for only 2 to 3 years, right? So basically now that raises another larger challenge that we have a much shorter time span to deliver huge amount of vaccines to a lot of people. Now, as Dr. Savita very, very effectively mentioned, there are going to be a lot of challenges in production of the vaccination if we are looking at live attenuated vaccines, right? Or if we are looking at structural vaccines, because they are basically developed by inducing mutations in a chick egg. That has been the historic mode of making a vaccination. But the new vaccinations, if they are successful, the mRNA vaccination, then they will completely revolutionize the supply chain. They will actually hasten the process of manufacturing. That being said, if we are looking at even 2 doses of vaccination, that means we are looking at inoculating 5.6 billion people, and that is around 12 billion vaccines, as Dr. Hari had quite eloquently put. So in that case, we are basically looking at huge manufacturing capabilities to be and scaling up of the existing manufacturing capabilities. We have a manufacturing capacity of around 1 billion vaccination every year globally as of now. It's nowhere close to the 12 billion vaccination that we need. We will need a lot of scaling up, a lot of funding when we have a vaccine ready, even in the form of, in the process of manufacturing. Now, once we have the vaccination, as Dr. Hari had previously mentioned, most vaccines do require a cold storage, right? Because they need to maintain the vaccination or the virus in a dormant state, right? These cold storages are far and few in between in all third world countries, be it India, be it Southeast Asia, be it Africa, be it South America, which constitutes around 6/7 of the world population in total. Now, these areas do not have straight supply chains. So if supply chains break, that is one of the biggest challenges that we face in terms of vaccination. That has happened over and over again in terms of polio in India. So it's not difficult for us to understand what happens, because if it's a live attenuated vaccine, then it gets activated as soon as the temperatures go up. And when we actually put in the vaccination to a person, then we are actually giving the person a direct dose of the virus itself, right? And we really, really don't want that. So that is one thing that we really have to be concerned with. So for the next couple of months, it's going to be crucial to develop these supply chains rather with either drone deliveries as is happening in Africa right now, or through developing road infrastructure and mobile cold chains. That is also happening in Southeast Asia and Thailand right now, right? Apart from that, some of the other things that we'll have to be extremely concerned about is the health of the healthcare workers. To implement these vaccines, we will need an army of healthcare workers across the globe to reach out to these areas, right? So we will have to not only train, we will have to actually generate the paramedical forces into being able to deliver these vaccination in the right manner and maintain the sanctity of the chain, supply chain, as we talk about. So there will be a huge task, an upcoming task in training not only the doctors who we have very small number of, but also paramedical staffs, be it Anganwadi workers in India or Ashas or ENAMs, or even the lateral medical staff that we have who are quite active in the primary care centers in India. So this is going to be the necessity across the globe to develop a task force, to develop a workforce that can actually implement these scales of vaccination after we have them in manufacturing. Third, what we have to do is education of the population itself, right? US has in the last 12 years seen decreasing number of vaccination year on year. That has been the case in a couple of other countries as well, including South America, where I am right now, where we have a huge endemic cultural problem with vaccination, where people really are against the idea of vaccination. So, for actually educating the people to consider vaccination as an active choice is going to be one huge task that we have to undergo as well. So that is, and again, as this vaccination spreads with close contact, we have to make sure that most of these solutions are more contactless and digital than they are in person and direct. That being said, these are, I think, some of the major challenges that we are going to face in the next 1 year. And as Dr. Savita put, we and Dr. Shetty before her, that we have had very little understanding of the prognosis and the treatment of the virus. So right now we are facing a lot of clinical issues with doctors as well, who are at a loss as to what to do with new patients coming up, because there's a lack of understanding of disease and there's a lack of information sharing between groups of medical personnel also. So I think that is one big thing that we'll need to do. We'll need to set up areas of information sharing and knowledge sharing so that we can understand what are the clinical aspects of this disease and try and start solving them on ground as well, and not just wait for a vaccine solution, right? So I think these are some of the major concerns that we'll face, and I think we can get the rest in the question answer series.
Sure, Dr. Sabeen will definitely take it up. Is Dr. Shetty, are you there right now? I think
Yes, I'm there.
Okay. So, Dr. Shetty, do you feel that, would you like to share some of your thoughts and opinion basis on the presentation and the the points which shared by Dr. Savita and Dr. Sabeen?
Yes, of course, they presented everything about the vaccine and the distribution and all those things. But what we have, what I understood about the vaccine is, let us say, coming to the simple influenza vaccine. Okay, so we have got so many types of influenza vaccines. And to tell you, influenza vaccine is not extensively used in India. It is used extensively in US. And even over a period of time, there are so many changes in the influenza vaccine. Let us say, now I don't know what these companies, I would like to ask Savita, or I would like to ask Sabina now, whether these the development of vaccine is on the envelope or on the protein code, or it is the studies are going on developing vaccine on the RNA molecule. What type of activities are going on? Savita, you can tell me on that.
Sir, what we understand is these companies are working on different parts of these virus. Mainly, they are working on the spike protein. What I see is many of these companies are working on the spike protein, and Moderna is working on the mRNA part, and a few on the DNA, the recombinant DNA. But I don't think they've revealed much about this in the forum. But they are doing certain activities with these parts of the virus.
But see, any vaccine which is developed on the RNA module, because even now over a period of 6 months, there are so many mutations in the RNA sequencing of this particular virus. And that's why I feel the moment we are, the moment we discover or we invent vaccines on the RNA platform, it may become useless, over a period of time. I remember we had about 2 years back when we had a H1N1 pandemic in Bangalore, for that matter. We had the nasal sprays. That the nasal spray is basically to prevent the, prevent the what is called as the extension of the virus or the infiltration of the virus
Temperature.
into the
The mucosal sensitivity to the virus. So I think that was what.
into the tissues. Okay,
Mhm.
so basically it thrives on the thrives within the human cell, so it cannot thrive outside the human cell, for that matter outside any biological material. So we had that H1N1 vaccination. It was a nasal vaccination. Even coming to polio vaccination, polio vaccine is also, somebody rightly said about the polio vaccine. We had the polio vaccine, almost for the last 30-40 years, but we could use that extensively. Like we eradicated the polio only last year, I would like to say. So what I'm asking is, what the question, the basic question today, we are, whole world, as Hari Krishna Maran told, about 7 billion people are asking about the vaccine. Let us say I come out with the vaccine tomorrow. Will it be very useful? The
Dr.
million
Savita,
dollar
can
question is important here. If I take a vaccine, let's say I have a vaccine,
No,
but
that's
will it
why,
be useful?
yes,
Because
that's why,
over 24 hours, the virus may mutate, that vaccine becomes totally useless. And if you've got a virus for the protein coat or the lipid coat of that, it may not penetrate the tissues. So the lot of hype about, because see, I'll tell you, we had a lot of hype about hydroxychloroquine. Okay, then what happened? I don't know. We had a lot of hype about one more, the convalescent plasma. Okay, this is also not working very well, because convalescent plasma is supposed to have lot of antibodies, lot of whatever it is, protein molecules which can fight the virus, but it is not, that is not working against these viral infections. So what I'm telling is, the most important question is, we had vaccines for so many viral infections. Even today, nobody takes influenza shots in many countries, except in maybe US. Maybe they may be using it so that everybody will come and work in their offices. They don't want to have people not working because of the influenza infection. That's why they are using influenza vaccine or the flu shots. So flu shots are not at all popular, not at all used in India. So what I'm telling is, let us say everybody is asking about a vaccine. The first question to everybody is, will it be useful?
Dr. Savita, do you mind if I take this question?
yeah,
Yes.
Dr. Shetty, honestly, okay, I'll give you my opinion because I have been working with the UN for some time. So this is my personal opinion. I think that even when we are successful in getting a working vaccine in place, it's not going to be our front line of defense,
Okay.
right? Our front line of defense is going to be our clinical management of the patients. As you rightly said, as of now, we have around 27 genotypes of the virus, and we have around 2 phenotypes of the virus, right? As we have seen one in Tehran and the rest that we have seen in the rest of the world. Now, the thing is, we do not have a complete genetic map of even those 27 strains that we are talking about. And most of them will have, some of them will have different structures of spike proteins, as Dr. Savita mentioned. So, the thing is, as you said, by the time we reach the entire population, the vaccine is most likely to be not very effective. As you know that the flu shot in the US is at best 5% effective, right? And they have never had an efficacy of more than 5% with the flu shot. And again, you have to take a new one every season. So what will be, in my opinion, and this is my personal opinion, that what will be the solution to these problems is going to be a clinical management of these problems, getting the information out, getting doctors and healthcare workers trained enough to manage cases and reduce mortality, and not just a vaccine solution. A vaccine solution will definitely help with the morale of the community, but it is not going to be the final solution.
I agree with that. The vaccine may give us a little more confidence to work with these patients, and also It will increase the morality of the society, that those patients, those people who have got vaccination, they will be a little more confident to, move around. And as far as viral infections, I also personally feel if you are very, very scared, the question is coming now, is it necessary? Even for that matter, the Prime Minister of UK, when he had infection, they're wondering, they're worrying, should we put him in a ventilator? Because he refused ventilators. Putting ventilators is just like, it is a next step, one step before death, I would like to say.
Yeah.
So that is a situation. So what I'm telling is, as I would like to quote my honorable Prime Minister, is Atmanirbhar Bharat. Like, we should be more competent. We should have the more immunity within. Because viral infections, as far as my knowledge is concerned, it will be never solved with the vaccines. That is my, of course, I don't think I'm open to all the people around here. I'm just having a confidential discussion with you. So viral, of course, we are asking about the vaccine, but vaccine will not be a game changer as far as the corona infection is considered. It will improve your confidence, but at this time, I would like to say improving our confidence is most important defense against this virus. The testing, tracing, tracking, the 4 T's we talk about, and a lot of media hype and a lot of hype about this, infection. That is seriously affecting the confidence of human beings in the planet today, especially in India. Fortunately, we are all vaccinated by BCG. And another thing is, fortunately, we have got what is called the dirtiness dividend. We are all exposed to millions of viruses. I feel we have got enough immunity with the human body. That is why we have got a lot of infections, but our fatality ratio is not as great as in other Western Europe or US. So I'm very happy about it. But I have got real doubts about the usefulness of
Dr. Shetty, yeah, I completely agree. One more thing that we have to be concerned about is the validity of the numbers that we are looking at. Right, we have been suspecting corruption of data source, and that has been a problem since the beginning of this, since the spread of these global pandemic, or rather the global pandemic status of COVID. And we have had problems with identifying infection in most cases, and the efficacy of RT-PCR or availability of an IgG-IgM test kit, and basically trying to manage, infection in a population. So, trying to understand the growth of the infection is going to be more important than trying to verify the numbers, because we are not going to get the right numbers on ground. So again, as you said that India is doing better, I truly believe that it is, but we still don't know for sure how good or how bad we are at, right? So I think that is something that we need to really consider for our analysis.
Very interesting session, by the way, and actually for me it's one of its own kind session, because we've been into the learning industry and typically been into trainings and other things, and having such kind of medical discussions and very focused discussions on the research and the vaccine is going to be very important. I'm just wondering if this kind of information can reach out to the masses and in a more usable form. And I'm sure the doctors and the health workers are also might be still wondering about this information. Not people who are in the medical field also probably would not have such kind of information available. Am I right in that? Or how is it being spread out right now?
Yeah, being a layman, actually, I agree with what you're saying, because this is so enlightening for me. Most of us are looking at the news for the vaccine, and we have no idea about what thought process is going into bringing that vaccine and implementing the entire thing. So this is a very, very enriching discussion, and I think it can really open eyes for people who are just waiting for the vaccine to come, thinking it'll be a solution for everything. So yeah, it's very enlightening. Thank you, Dr. Sabeen. Thank you, Dr. Shetty, for those questions.
Yeah, I just want to conclude, not the conclude, I just want to give my opinion that, that awareness in the society, rather than, we need little more care for the social people. We don't want to scare them. The whole world works with the scare, the media wants to scare the people, the pharma companies want to scare the people, the doctors want to scare the people, because look, this will happen, so many people dead, that all those scaring the people will not help. I feel such webinars should happen, so that, as Anshul has put it nicely, we need to educate our people. Look, you are all safe, don't worry, everything is fine. Because it is nicely put, no, as long as I sit in this room and talk about and see everything, I'm totally fine. As long as I go out also, I'm fine. But the moment I read these videos, newspapers, I feel the whole world is going to collapse within 24 hours. So that such an impression should not be given to the people. We need to encourage our people so that they develop a vaccine within, I would like to say. See, now that is, she said cytokine flux. The people are killed by cytokine flux. The overwhelming inflammatory reaction is destroying our lungs. Why that? It is basically because we are all scared. So I feel everybody should be safe. Everybody should be confident that we'll defeat this virus within ourselves, not from outside medicines.
Absolutely.
Yeah, two things I wanted to add here is, like Dr. Shetty said, most of the thing is care. About 80% of COVID patients, when they looked at, globally, 80% were asymptomatic or they did not need any treatment. So they were, actually have to be accommodated in lodges or schools or the temporary arrangements where they will just be monitored. The remaining 20%, half of them just didn't need any kind of treatment other than oxygen. Just continuous oxygen was the drug of choice for them. And the remaining who were with certain comorbidities went on to the ventilator. So the percentage is very low, but the scare is, the media or in the newspapers, the small percentage of the people who are getting into the ICUs or onto the ventilators is being projected. And the second thing, what I would like to say is, influenza virus is one example where it mutated and the vaccines didn't work. But again, we have measles, mumps, and rubella, which worked out for so many years. So, though RNA viruses are for mutation, definitely we'll work on it, and one day we will come out with a efficient vaccine. But until then, the three mantras of hand wash, social distancing, and mask is always has to be, emphasized on, and prevention is always better than cure.
I agree. Measles, mumps, rubella, of course, we eradicated, but it took its toll. It went off. I really don't know whether it went off because of the vaccination or whether it died down on its own. Similarly, when the coronavirus dies down on its own, maybe over a period of time, that time we may come out with an insulin. It is like what happened first, whether the virus died down or the vaccine came first. That time we may claim that the vaccine has come and that killed the virus.
So I agree with both you guys, Dr. Savita and Dr. Shetty. A couple of things I want to add here is that one thing we have to understand that the virus doesn't have humans as a natural host. So after a certain period of time, the viral load is decreasing in patients. We just have to keep them alive for that long.
Absolutely.
Right? We just have to make sure that the patient's organ systems don't fail. And if we are successful, then we don't really have to kill the virus. It dies down on its own. In future, there might be a mutation in the virus which is more amiable to the human host, but right now this one is not. Right? So we just have to take care of the person until he gets better. And as Dr. Savita said, right, only we have around 27% of the population across the globe that is asymptomatic. And the biggest scare that we had when this entire thing began was that even the asymptomatic patients were infective, right? They were virulent. So in those cases, we have to be concerned. We have to be cautious, but not, as I said, as you all mentioned, not fearful for the matter, because we are still not even considering the collateral damages on all other health and other systems, right, which are going to be too difficult to calculate at this point, right? And that fear also affects not only our mentality, but staying at home for so many days, the depressions, the kind of mental health disorders that have started to emerge, do affect immune response as such as well. And we have seen studies that report to the same. So I think that is one thing. Also, I wanted to put one question in front of you. Moderna's vaccination has kind of seen a lot of PR recently because mRNA vaccination is much faster to manufacture. And the storage chains are much more lenient in that case because we are basically transporting just a molecule, right? So in that case, do you guys also think that that might have autoimmune symptoms to it? Because in a way, we are trying to induce, an antigenic property to a host cell, which in case is cascading into an immune response. So this is something that we have been discussing as we go, and I would really like to know your opinion on the same.
Savita can answer that.
What I feel is we'll have to wait and watch. I can't say much about mRNA being used in this context. But again, this mRNA is going to, push the spike protein. So that is all. Again, we are all concentrating on this spike protein and trying to make an mechanism where the organism will not, attach to the human cell. So we'll have to wait and watch.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Savita.
That is a good question you asked, whether the human host cells will develop autoimmune diseases because of these antigens. That is another scare. But right now, that human recombinant vaccines, we never had such side effects. Isn't it, Sabine? What do you say about that?
No,
Of course, chicken, like egg vaccines, chicken, all those vaccines, we had autoimmune responses. But recombinant vaccines and cell vaccines, we never had. I don't know much about it.
So we never had recombinant vaccination at this scale ever, right? We never ever had that at this scale. So when the scale is larger, the complications are more, especially when it comes to varied population sections, right? So that is something that we have been mulling over. So we hope Moderna succeeds, and because that will really relieve a lot of effort on supply chain. But whoever does, like whoever reaches the finish line first, we still have a vaccination, we still have to scale it, we still have to supply it. And as I think I mentioned earlier as well, that is going to take time, that is going to take a lot of work, that's going to take a lot of resources, and that's not going to be a first line of defense at all. So that is something we still have to keep in mind, that we do have to work hard to try and get to some semblance of a new normal before, and not just bank on, a new vaccine coming in the market. So I think those are the things that we have to keep in mind.
What will be the natural history, or I would say not more than natural, what is the usual time to die down these viruses? For example, we had SARS, MERS, I don't know. It depends on the number of amino acids in the RNA chain or something like that. I think they've got a timeline to, die down.
Die down as in you're talking about the, the outbreak to get controlled, or the vaccine
Yes.
to be effective?
No, these virus outbreak to control. Generally what? We heard about Spanish flu, we heard about SARS, MERS. They had their own time. Ebola virus for that matter.
Yeah,
Most virulent viruses die down very fast. That's what I think.
So, no, I think there is a little bit of a difference there. Not the most virulent, the most fatal viruses died down very fast. Because the viruses which are more fatal to the host and more active in the host body, those viruses cannot spread faster. The host starts controlling. There is a control in the host mechanism itself, right? And if you are, suppose in case of Ebola, which has 80% rate of mortality, when you start vomiting your entire body fluid out, you're not going to get, go out and start spreading it around, right? Which is the biggest problem with this virus, that even in non-infective, in cases which do not show any kind of symptoms, the virus is still actively virulent, which is why it's spreading faster. It could have died down faster if the mortality rate was higher. So that is always the case. The higher the mortality, the faster the control. And the Spanish flu expanded for so much also because the Spanish flu also spread in non-symptomatic hosts. And which is why it spread to home countries with the First World War soldiers as they went from one country to another. So yeah.
now this COVID virus has got any timeline, any idea about it for die down?
I wish I knew, but no, I don't think there is any semblance of data that we have to comment on that topic. But as Dr. Savita put, we have to wait and watch for that. We just have to, because we have new information, new litigation, new responses every day. So as Dr. Hari mentioned in the beginning, the government response is also going to be very, very important in this case, because we have to, like, we are in a place where in MP, there's a congestion of infections now in tribal areas in the Chamba region, which has been notorious for Naxal activity. That is happening in Jharkhand and Telangana as well. And that are the places that we know of, because we are not testing in the rural areas yet. So the thing is that we are going to have to capacitate the rural healthcare workers at some point to start, being the frontline workers or first responders that we have never had in India, to try and be the first responders to these disease control, right?
But if you consider the Dharavi module for that matter, where about 6 lakhs people stay within 2 square kilometers, okay, the infectivity is high, but the fatality is not at all, proportional to the infectivity.
Yeah, it's
We
not.
talked about social response, social distancing and all those things. Such a huge slum, you don't see any fatality. It just comes as a viral infection. It is just spreading like a flu and it is just dying down.
So,
By the way, sorry, this is a very interaction. This is my question which I was about to ask when your discussion is over. You are talking about fatality, is really low, and that number is also showing up. Now, how is this going to be different in some cases where we have seen that the person has got infected and within 2-3 days they have died? These kind of cases are also there. So how is that different from the ones with respect to the percentages of fatality versus infective patients?
Dr. Shetty, you will take it or should I?
You go ahead, Sabir. Yes.
Okay, I think there are two things that you have to be considerate about. One is the viral load in the host, and second is you have to talk about comorbidities. So patients who are dying very fast most often have comorbidities, which are either known or unknown comorbidities. So I think that is one thing that you have. The reason why we are also scared is we are trying to protect the weakest in the population, right? Trying to protect the elderly, the comorbid population. So people who are dying faster at a younger age are people who have some or the other comorbidity or have a huge exposure to the virus. So a lot of healthcare workers have very regular, or police workers or people who are in population control. They have huge exposure to disease, and because of that, the viral load is very high in there to begin with in those infectious cases. So I think those are the two things that demarcate a case that Dr. Shetty was saying, which has mild symptoms. So I myself recovered from COVID. Right, I was infected when I was in Tehran, and I recovered after around 3 weeks. So I had very mild symptoms myself, and I think that is the reason, because my exposure was still lesser and not as much. Right. So I think that is one thing that you have to be considerate about.
Second thing is a host immunity, Savina, isn't it? So
Yeah.
the host immunity, the people, and we also talking about the dirtiness dividend. They're all exposed to all the dirt in the world. They're always exposed to the bacteria. They're always exposed to all those viruses. And I feel those people who are concentrating so much on their cleanliness, those who used to drink only the double distilled water, reverse osmosis water, they are never exposed to any of these organisms. They don't have any immunity in their body. I feel that's what I don't know.
It's definite. Very well said, Shetty. I agree with that.
Thank you.
My doctor has always advised me to not have the doctored waters. He says, even as a child, he had told me that you are in school, you are going to get infections at every point in time. So don't bother with all this. there is immunity and exercise.
Yes.
Beyond that, you can't do anything.
Yes.
I am not sure if you have met Sharmila before. I'm not sure it was
No,
if
no,
she
not
was there.
at all.
Okay. So I think Sharmila, you should definitely talk a little bit about you before we proceed here. So Sharmila is the CEO and co-founder of Bringle, and she was not well for a very for a couple of days, and I think that is the reason she could not join our last session as well. So Sharmila, I will not talk more about you. I would want you to kind of talk about yourself and give a little background about your journey with doctors since the age of
I know.
5.5.
In June 1970, I fell ill with encephalitis. You guys are working with viruses. I had one, and you can see the results. I have a speech problem and I have a spastic limb. So that happens. I am not in any way incapacitated here. So that's a wonder that I am working. 15 years of therapy, physical therapy, 20 years of speech therapy, no vacations, and I know probably the hospitals and doctors around India because my patients were always in hospitals doing therapy. I still have physical therapy and I consult my speech therapist every year if I can do more to improve. Academically, I am a mathematician and a statistician. I am an MSc Maths. I am an MBA in Operations, and I am a diploma holder in computer science. So I swim, I cycle, I trek. I have done motorcycles on the highway. I have not raced, but yes, I love two wheels. And I don't think I have missed out on school, college, life, because I love to party. I am a bit saddened that the past 4 months have been, housebound. So it's okay. I am not.
I have never felt that she's kind of have that disability. In fact, there are times when she has become a support to me, to the situations when it has been tough. So her perseverance, her at times when you feel as an entrepreneur that okay, it's too much now to handle, and then she will come back to say and say, Anshav, you cannot leave. I'm there. I'm sitting there right away with you. And that's the kind of confidence which you get in and the mental strength which I'm talking about. I mean, physical is one part, but the mental strength is very, very important. And that's what I think immunity or other things will come in from a mental strength perspective as well.
I agree, Sharmila. Yeah. Please.
Yeah, and I think we need to promote that more now, along with talking about the vaccine, building immunity through mental resilience and emotional resilience. We need to talk that more, along with good eating habits and the little things that we followed, social distancing, mask and sanitizers. I think that is also something that we really should promote in this case. So thank you so much. Dr. Hari, we have Dr. Hari with us.
Sorry, I mixed a little bit of the discussion. I thought when the three eminent doctors are there, it is better, salespeople go little bit. So that is the reason I was in other webinar. So I just finished that and joined. I think wonderful discussion, sir. Dr. Balakrishna Shetty sir and Sabina, I think gave wonderful inputs on the COVID-19 vaccine and the entire theory of the virus and things. I think it reminds our college days where we studied all kind of pharmacology and those kind of subjects. It's great. I think definitely as what we were talking, hopefully the vaccine will come and things will start improving. That is the reason in the last today and yesterday, the market also gone up and everybody expectations are gone up and everyone is positive now. So I think as an Indian, we should be really proud that the vaccine is coming from India. So definitely it is a great, because earlier also the pharma industry is proved bringing wonderful drugs to entire world. That is the reason the India, the bar is kind of, highly elevated by even including the president of the United States of America itself was in regular touch with our Prime Minister, the Honorable Prime Minister, because they wanted the products like hydroxychloroquine and dexamethasone and other antivirals. So I think definitely everything mood is good. Hope everything goes in a positive way. And definitely thank you very much for your valuable input, sir.
Sorry, I was on mute. If we have more questions, Anshav, then we can have them now.
So I am really sorry. I have stopped Dr. Shetty and Dr. Sabin's discussion. So if you want to continue that, we can do that for probably another 5-10 minutes. Then we'll close the session because I don't want you guys to sitting online and straining our eyes right now.
I think out of our series, this is the longest series what we had.
Yeah,
it's actually a very interesting one.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm really happy to be a part of this discussion, and this is so valuable at this point of time.
Yes. So Dr. Shetty, Dr. Sabine, Dr. Savita, I have only one request, and probably I would say, that if you think that we can be of any help in reaching out to the masses in terms of education and managing such kind of webinars and things, we would be happy to support on that thing. So do let us know if you need our support in managing these kind of webinars more and more so that we can spread out the word. This entire session is recorded and we will definitely put it in our community page and let everybody come and join there. So that anyways can be spread out. But if you want something more around it, we'll be happy to support on that.
Is that only webinars related to healthcare or any webinar for that matter?
We can do anything, Dr. Shetty, in terms of, I think if you're looking at, we are currently working on various aspects. So like one of the concepts we have started or developing an entrepreneurship mindset within the student segment. So we are launching a program called Studentpreneur. We are working with early age startups, late stage startups, MSMEs for developing the entrepreneurship program, which is a transformation program of Design Your Unicorn. Then we have a B2B transformation model, which is called Business Chakravyuh model for the corporates with respect to people, process, and technology transformation. So those kind of things also we are doing in. Apart from that, we are launched a new series we are launching next week on data analytics cybersecurity and digital transformation in different segments and how to become a cyber warrior. What is the importance of data security today? What is data analytics? So we are bringing in various concepts on that. Then there is a specific focus on the HR and L&D segment with respect to the corporate specifically, how the design thinking, how the lean thinking will be used, required in your emotional intelligence in the manufacturing, in the health industry at this point in time. Wherever the new product development is required, how design thinking can be helpful for being more productive, how lean thinking can make it more frugal, and how emotional intelligence will be required to deploy those things. So there are variety of concepts which we can deploy onto that. So if you want some specific segment on that, developed for school children, college students, corporates, hospitals, any kind of thing we can arrange on that. We have got global experts with us, and Dr. Hari had been very kind to, kind of giving us a lot of eminent personalities and speakers also. We also have 11,000 plus experts around available in different domains spread across 50 plus countries. Our platform has an organic reach, which is basically shown by Google Analytics in 141 countries. We have got our own TV media channel integrations done with our platform. Of course, Dr. Hari also had a lot of media connections. So depending on the requirements, we can look at customizing it and helping out to reach out to the masses. From a technology perspective, we are well-versed platform with respect to blended learning, virtual labs, gamification, interactive meetups platform, webinar platforms of as high as 5,000, 10,000 participants over there, up to 1,000 panelists over there. We have been able to manage all these kind of forums. So if you want any kind of these forums to be organized at a larger scale, we also have a complete online platform for the schools, colleges, universities in this time, which actually reduce, if let's say, it is basically, 25% of your physical infrastructure cost can be built up this online platform, or as low as $3 per month per student basis. And it is an end-to-end gamification platform with the live classes, self-paced learning programs and things, and to the level of a proctored examination with a virtual invigilation, with the AI-based, eye-based movement, tracking for a cheating-proof examination and things like that. To a level of any kind of augmented reality, virtual reality modules being developed or required in the domain from a training. Like last time I was talking about, we are working with one of the doctor from US, where we are developing a virtual operation theater and a complete medical training, MBBS training on an online platform in a typical gamification based models. So we have the capabilities on that. If you require anything on that, we can definitely look at it.
So nice to know about this. And I would say, as usual, Hari is always a highly resourceful person, no doubt about it.
Very much. Very much.
Meanwhile, I would like a final conclusion, like from my side. Sharmila gave us a lot of inputs on that. I would like to say, she spoke about doctored water, the water which is doctored instead of natural water. We started drinking doctored waters, and by doctored water, we have been getting all these infections. Similarly, the doctored food, which we call it as a junk food. So instead of the natural food, we started eating all this junk food. And another thing is that doctored work. I also would like to say about the doctored work. Instead of doing our own work, we started doing exercises, so-called exercises, and started lifting weights and all such things in the gymnasiums. We forgot our work, and all these things, doctored water, doctored food, and doctored work. Okay, I think with our own work, we will improve our immunity. That is the most important thing I would like to say today. And that immunity will help us with all these viral infections, which are not going to end with the coronavirus. Year and year, we'll start getting these corona-like infections, and we should be strong from within, not from outside. That's the most important thing I would like to say. And I would like to put one more point here, which is an innovative point as well as a coronavirus infection is considered. Our university is coming out with the digital radiography, digital X-ray of the lungs. Okay, with artificial intelligence. We'll be launching it soon. By that time, I'll also talk to Anshul and Sabina and the rest of the people to launch this. What we are doing is, now you can see the scare in the minds of the people. You know, dead bodies, even the close friends, relatives, mother, father, not the mother, father, son, daughter, they're not ready to touch the dead bodies of their mothers and close relatives because they're so scared. Similarly, we don't get healthcare workers in the hospitals to take the swab. And number two. Number three, even if you get a swab, it takes such a long time to get the information. And it has also come worldwide open that it is not necessary to test asymptomatic patients. By testing asymptomatic patients, we are just committing a crime, just increasing the scare in the community. That is not important. We should not test with these things. We have come out with a novel idea that we should image the lungs. Okay, imaging of the lungs are done by HRCT, which is very expensive and it shows a lot of radiation. So you have come out with a low dose digital radiography with artificial intelligence. The moment there is a patch on the lungs, the artificial intelligence will show that as a patch, and we can identify these are the patients who have got lung infection. These are the patients we need to treat or need to tackle, not identify each and every patient with the PCR testing and brand him as a COVID positive patient. So this is the one which is coming out in my university, Siddhartha University, Tumkur and Bangalore. Soon we'll be launching this DR with the artificial intelligence, identify patients who are infected with infection in their lungs and do the subsequent lab test, because that radiology will give you the report within 20 seconds. Within 20 to 30 seconds, you'll know whether you have a lung infection or not. So this is the one which will be launching, and I'll get back to you on that, Anshul. Anything, Sabina?
Yeah, sure, sir.
I will wrap it up because I really have to go. The day is just starting for me right now.
Okay, good.
So,
Thank
yeah.
you, Sabina. Thank you for your inputs, and you did a great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shetty. A couple of things that I had to say first. Shamila, you are amazing. You are an inspiration, and we should put your story out there. I mean, that is something that we should really, really do. Right? And I'm pretty sure that more people know about you, and more should. One. Second thing, Anshul, thank you for the brief of what you guys do. In the next 3 weeks, I'm coming back to India, joining the COVID National Task Force. And we would love your help because we are shifting focus now to more mortality control than just infection control, because that is something that's extremely necessary at this point, where we have spread of infection and vascular. Third, as Dr. Shetty said, yes, the new inventions and new innovations are going to be extremely useful. And I would really like to know if I had read a paper by Dr. Habib Baluwala a couple of years back from Oxford University, which had spoken about a similar technology. So I would love to know how things have been adapting with you. And Dr. Savita, it's always a pleasure. I had a word with you earlier as well, and it's amazing to speak with you, and I would love to speak more. Thank you, Sargam, and thank you, Ansha. Thank you, Dr. Hari, especially for reaching out to me and for making me do this, because I don't. I am generally, like, these 5 months I have been working 20 hours a day. So webinars have kind of not been my thing. But thank you for dragging me out to do this. Thank you so much. I'll have to leave now, but thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Take care. Take care.
Thank you.
Dr. Sabine, thanks for being there. I know that you've been into various medical emergencies and still you made time. So we have no regrets that you could not get a presentation. So first of all, don't mind on that.
I'm so sorry for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. You still added so much value.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye, Sabine.
So shall we close the session?
Yes, sir, I think we can. Dr. Savita, do you have some final words for us to share? Anything from your side?
Actually, it was Dr. Hari who asked me if I could do this. In fact, the topic on vaccine itself scared me, not COVID. Initially I was thinking what I should really speak on, because everything is so uncertain and we still don't know much about vaccine. And meanwhile, this Covaxin came up. So thank you, Dr. Hari, Anshul, Anshav, to give me this opportunity. At least, we all came together and we all exchanged a lot of information and so much, we understand we have so much to do in the future. So it was a very a great experience, I must say. And maybe anyway, we are all on the WhatsApp group and we'll all be, interacting, and we'll see where we all can collaborate and work together. So it was a very good opportunity for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Savita, for that wonderful presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Shetty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you so
See you
much.
all.
Thanks, Dr. Hari, for managing.
Bye. Bye. Take care.
Good day. Have a nice weekend to all of you.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Hari. Thank you, Savita. Thank you, Sargam.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
sir.
Anshul. Thanks
Sir,
for
our
giving me an
pleasure.
opportunity to
Thanks.
speak. Thank you all. Bye.
Thanks for
Bye.
being there. I'll be in touch with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.